Hi, this is Crystal, and welcome to your e-learning material on older people's mental health and social policy. This video will give you a brief introduction to the topic and give you instruction on what to do for your e-learning. In England and Wales, mental health policy has historically remained focused on adults of working age. Yet, the provision of services to older clients has never been more necessary as the demographics of the society that we live in is transformed by the growing number of older persons. This changing client profile will require a rethink among service providers. So the learning outcomes for this e-learning is to examine how society responds to the needs of older adults, in particular those with mental health difficulties, identify the issues and challenges to the future of older adult care, consider how social policy approaches and addresses these needs and challenges, and begin to recognise how policy has highlighted a crisis within health and social care in supporting an ageing population. Activity 1. Open a new Microsoft Word document and write down a few notes on what you think your retirement may look like. That's right, you might not have qualified as a nurse yet, but are already thinking about our retirement. Have an idealistic but realistic image of what your day-to-day life might look like once you retire. Consider, where would you live? What would your health and mental well-being be like? How might this change over the years? What would be your main challenges? Where would you get your income from? How much money would you need to live out your retirement comfortably? How comfortable can you still move around and get from place to place? Do you still meet up with people socially? How much involved are you with your extended family? What interests and hobbies do you still maintain? How do you spend your time? And what other ambitions might you have in later in life? Further education, travel, help caring for younger family members? Write a few notes down on what you view as your retirement. As you explore social policy related to older adults, keep in mind your retirement plans and the notes that you have made. Ask, how can current policy help you to live out your retirement plans? Does current policy do enough to support your plans? How does policy support you to continue to live out the retirement that you want, even if things do not always go to plan? Such as if your health begins to deteriorate, if you can no longer drive, if you did not have the support of family and friends around you, if people had doubts about your mental capacity, or you were short on financial savings. A study by ILC UK and Prudential 2015 found that many people had expectations of what retirement could look like, but actually the reality tends to be somewhat different. What this report found was that retirees tend to save their money rather than spend on holidays and leisures, despite having previously planned and expected that they could go away on that 6-month cruise or travel around the world, go into further education. Why do you think this might be? Why might people want to save and hold on to their money? With the exception of early retirement, retirement does not lead to more holidays or other leisure activities, this report found. Nor does retirement lead to an increase in eating out. From the age of 50 onwards, spending on most non-essential items begins a slow decline. As we age, time at home alone increases, while time spent with family and friends falls. by the age of 90 plus, watching television and spending time at home alone were some of the most common daily activities, according to this report. Health also appears to restrict an increasing proportion of older people from doing the things that they want to do in retirement. Just under half of those aged 55 to 64 in England fully own their property, and 24% are still renting. This figure is set to rise with the current housing ownership demographic of younger people today. We currently live in an aging society where there is a larger number of older persons than there is younger persons. And some statistics on the screen highlight that. As the population ages, it is predicted that by 2030 there will be 45% more people living with diabetes, 50% more people living with arthritis, coronary heart disease or stroke, and 80% more people, nearly 2 million in total, living with dementia. These population trends have important and well-reported impacts on health and care demand. The current system in England provides public funding only to those with the greatest need and the lowest means. A person will not qualify for any level of public funding until their assets are below £23,250 and will not receive full funding until their assets are below £14,250. If someone requires care in a residential or nursing home, for example, their assets are also likely to include the value of their own home, even if that home is shared. Social care is facing high growth and demand, which is projected to rise by around £12 billion by 2030 and 2031, growing at an average rate of 3.7% a year. At the same time, we project growth in spending on social care of just 2.1% a year. This would leave a huge funding gap of approximately £1.5 billion by 2020. So why the crisis? Well, as we've already discovered, there's an increasing number of people living into later age. Older adult health and social care can also be quite highly labour intensive and very skilled, with older adults having quite complex needs. There is also the potential rise in expectations of care and uncertainty of the numbers of who will need care. The economic climate of the country will also have repercussions on social and healthcare funding. And a higher number of persons with long-term conditions are evident in our current statistical analysis. There is also a level of age discrimination in social policy. We have already recognised that until recently, social policy has mostly been focused on adults of working age. Current mental health policy aims to reduce stigma and discrimination in relation to mental health. However, it does not maintain initiatives to root out age discrimination. Where older adults have been considered, the focus has mostly been on long-term care, social care, a very biomedical view, and to some level, dementia. General mental well-being of older people still remains very much overlooked. Go back to your Microsoft Word document that you had opened and started creating notes on for Activity 1. Now add a section for Activity 2, defining what is an older person. John's 2011 states, The extent to which policy serves as a vehicle to create change and to promote the well-being of older people depends greatly on the assumptions, constructs, and definitions that it is founded upon. Therefore, think about, how do you define what is an older person? What is the age group? What can an older person look like? What do they typically do? What stereotypes are you aware of old age? Write these down. Take a moment to identify how you have defined an older person. Typically, an older adult is recognized as someone who is above the age of 60 or 65. However, there is a wealth of different stereotypes out there on older adults. And it raises the question of, are older adults a burden or can they be a benefit to society? In media, older adults are generally heavily underrepresented or even ignored. Or worse yet, typical stereotypes and cliches often arrive. The older person as the helpless victim, dependent on others, has no worth to society. Older adults who are found on TV and other media who defy these stereotypes are sometimes characterized as comical characters. The comedy sidekick, the bizarre old man yelling. In general public consensus, growing old is equated with inevitable deterioration. Some people believe that they will get dementia. Dementia is a natural part of the aging process when it is not. And older adults are sometimes even demonized as a group for their political views, their ideas. What do you think about this? So older adults are not a single group and should not be treated as such. Older people are as diverse as the rest of the population, and these simplistic stereotypes do not do them any justice. There is a huge danger with our current policy in that it focuses only on health and social need, missing out aspects of quality of life which are regarded as so important protective factors within the rest of mental health care. During the 20th century, the state gradually assumed an increasing share of responsibility for people past state pension age, on the patronizing assumption that age equaled dependence. However, it's clear that we need much more newer and sophisticated model than that. One that recognizes the potential of older people and the need to reflect that that we have changing roles within society and that older adults have a role within that society. We must support independence rather than enforcing dependence and develop policies and services that respond to need rather than simply to chronological age. So what does social policy currently aspire to do for older adults? Well, let's go back to the key ethos and purpose behind policy. And Dickens 2010 says that social policy ensures the welfare of citizens to promote the values of individual responsibility and family autonomy and to uphold economic freedom and prosperity. Current older adult policy has visions to do many different things, including protecting and maintaining financial security with consideration to pensions, the working age, welfare. Policy can also help improve access to health and social care, as well as support and prop up voluntary services. It can address the equality of health and social care so that it's more specific to the needs for older adults. There's a huge range of policy that is required to support informal carers, recognising and appreciating the role that they play. Social policy can also present opportunities for independent living, maintaining independence, maintaining choice and control. Social policy can serve or hinder age discrimination. Looking at age discrimination within workplaces at service level and political. Changing social reform can also sway public belief and perceptions. Social policy can also help to establish a more active and social older adult community and impact other factors, including transport. Let's take a look at one of these domains, such as financial security. Social policy here will have an impact on pensions, on supporting people to have enough money to live comfortably in their retirement, enough money even for basic amenities, and in looking at poverty in old age. According to Independent Age 2016, 1.6 million older people live in poverty, and older pensioners' incomes are on average £59 a week lower than younger pensioners. Ready for Aging Alliance 2016 states that saving levels remain far too low, and without significant increases, future generations of older people will find themselves poorer than today's pensioners. Women's state pension age reached 65 in 2018, after which the state pension age for both men and women will increase to 66 by 2020 and to 67 between April 2026 and 2028. Given the current trend in the rise of age of being able to claim full pension, have a look at the following chart and see at what age you might be able to claim your pension. Why are pensions so important? Well, almost 3 in 10 of 54 to 64-year-olds in Great Britain do not have any pension savings, nearly 2 million people, and may have to rely on the state pension alone. Let's consider whether you feel you could live on the state pension alone. The state pension is £151.20. Think about all your living expenses that you have paid for this past week. Think about food, petrol, bus fare, bills such as electric, gas, water, phone. Think of your rent. Think of all those luxury expenses, or if you wanted to go out to spend some time with your friends. Pet bills, gifts to families. How much does that total up to? Can you afford that on the state pension? And if you couldn't, what would be the first thing you would deduct to make ends meet? This is your activity 3. On your Microsoft Word notes, add your thoughts down on this. Our economy loses billions due to underemployment of older people who would prefer to keep working but can't because of ageism and/or shortage of flexible working opportunities. However, despite age discrimination in the workplace still being an issue, more and more older people who want to work longer are finding it possible to do so. Although many feel they have to keep working past their state of retirement age just to pay the bills when they would rather take retirement. For activity 4, briefly note down, at what age do you think people should stop working? What difficulties might an older person have to finding work? What may be the psychosocial benefits of working longer? Are there any detrimental effects? So whose responsibility is it anyway to help support and care for older people? Is it family and friends, unpaid carers? According to the ILC UK 2015, there's already around 1.5 million people providing over 50 hours per week of unpaid care. This is mostly coming from family and informal carers. Carers UK 2015, 82% of carers report that caring has had a negative impact on their health. 2% more than in 2014. They also report from a survey of carers where 84% say they feel more stressed, 78% say they feel more anxious, and 55% report that they have suffered from depression as a result of their caring role, and that's significantly up from 2014 also. There may be over 1 million people aged 65 and over without children by 2030, and therefore less opportunity or support from family and friends. So what about health and social care's role in supporting the older person? Health and social care face major staffing shortages over the short and medium term future. And unless the reality is properly gripped now, we are storing up for even bigger problems for the future. We have a huge undersupply of retirement housing, and new mainstream housing is not meeting the needs of older people today or tomorrow either. We currently spend less than some of the major EU countries on healthcare for older people. Let's consider how older adults are viewed across the world. Let's begin first with Korea. There in Korea, they celebrate old age. Not only do Koreans respect the elderly, but they also celebrate them. For some Koreans, the 60th and 70th birthdays are prominent life events, which are commemorated with large-scale family parties and feasts. In Japan, however, there's a bit of an elderly predicament. The Japanese prize and respect their older adults. However, Japan also faces a unique problem of tending to an increasing elderly population. 7.2% of the Japanese population will be 80 or older by 2020, which is likely to lead to a host of new problems for this country. Adult continence aids already outsell babies' nappies, and the pension system is on the course to dry up. Western cultures tend to be quite youth-centric, emphasizing attributes like individualism and independence. This relates back to a Protestant work ethic, which ties an individual's values to his or her ability to work, something that tends to diminish in older adulthood. In France, older people's rights are protected by law. France passed a decree in 2004 requiring its citizens to keep in touch with its older adult parents. It was only enacted following two disturbing events, though. One was the publication of statistics revealing France had the highest rate of pensioner suicides in Europe, and the other was the aftermath of a heat wave that killed 1,500,000 people, most of whom were older adults, and many of whom had been dead for weeks before they were found. Go back to your notes and briefly consider and jot down a few of your thoughts on whose responsibility you think it is to help support and care for older people. Should it be the family or the state? There are approximately 4.3 million people aged 50 and over in England who are living alone. And 1 in 3, that's 33% of people aged 80 and over, report feeling lonely. Older people who report bad or very bad health are 2.5 times more likely to report being lonely than those in good health. The number of people with dementia in the UK is forecasted to increase to over 1 million by 2025 and over 2 million by 2051, according to the Alzheimer's Society. They also report that the total cost of dementia in the UK is £26.3 billion, but two-thirds of the cost of dementia is paid by people with dementia and their families, such as paying for private social care. Depression is both seriously underdiagnosed and undertreated among older adults in primary care settings. It is estimated that 85% of older people with depression receive no help at all from the NHS. And undertreated depression is the leading cause of suicide among older people, with men living alone at particularly high risk. But it's not all doom and gloom. On the brighter side, people aged 65 and over tend to have lower levels of anxiety and higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction. The gap between male and female life expectancy is falling, and there is more attention on older adult care now than ever. The use of this data and awareness of the impending challenges also has the potential to revolutionize health and social care. Good social policy and social reform can have a huge impact on the lives of older adults. And even with the growing concerns of the financial viability of our health and social care system, there are new hopes on the horizon. Changes at service level, new technologies such as telecare and assistive technology. Services are now tending to be preventative and responsive. We are looking to support the aging population to lead longer working lives. Incentives for personal savings and private pensions. Supporting family and unpaid carers. Increasing the number and type of homes built. Increasing appropriate homes built for an aging society, including developing supportive communities. Policy supporting independent living, supporting a more fulfilled, active and social retirement. And in the 5-year forward view, opportunities for more innovative approaches for older people while generating cost savings by making services more efficient. And there are benefits to having an aging population. Older people are more consumer conscious, increasing the market strength, and are also an untapped market and economic dividend. We call this concept the silver pound. They help maintain a more experienced workforce. There's huge benefits around intergenerational mentoring. Older adults contribute significantly to free labour, community service and involvement in volunteer work. They can help reaffirm tradition, values. They can play an important role in family support, childcare, general assistance and support mental well-being across the family. Older adults also have a lower crime rate and share their wealth to younger generations. Older adults tend to be more politically involved, and we call this concept the grey vote, and introduce sustainable impacts on policy and politics. Now that you've had an introduction to social policy in older adults, and you've had the opportunity to explore some key concepts in this area, go to the following web link. This is the Centre for Policy on Aging and contains a wealth of older adult reports and policies. Explore some of the policy papers supplied on this webpage. Identify 2 papers of particular interest to you and explore their contents. Summarize and consider its key messages. How does this policy portray aging and older people? How will this policy impact the lives of older people in their day-to-day lives? And how would this work for you and your retirement plan? Will it help or hinder it? Finally, go back to the module's Blackboard page and explore the supplemental reading attached to social policy older adults. You may not be able to cover all of the supplemental reading, but make an effort to at least look and consider some of the pieces included. I hope you have enjoyed this e-learning.